The following video is created for educational and awareness purposes only. Our goal is to revisit unsolved criminal cases and keep their stories alive, in hopes that renewed attention may one day help bring answers, or even justice. We do not intend to accuse, defame, or spread misinformation about anyone involved. All information is based on publicly available sources and media reports.
Picture this. It's a crisp spring morning in 1984 in the heart of small-town America. A loving mom stands at the door, waving goodbye to her 15-year-old daughter as she heads off to school. Just another ordinary day, or so it seems. But that girl, she vanishes without a trace. 8 harrowing days later, her battered body is found dumped in the woods, strangled, beaten, with a horrifying object forced down her throat. The killer? Still walking free after 4 decades. Who took the life of innocent Lori Zimmerman? Why has justice evaded her family for so long? If you're into true crime that keeps you up at night, buckle up. Tonight, we're unraveling one of Maryland's most perplexing unsolved mysteries, layer by layer, clue by clue. You won't believe the twists, including a psychic who nailed hidden details. Stay tuned. This could be the episode that finally cracks the case.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Haunting Justice, your go-to spot for the deepest dives into real-life enigmas that baffled the world. If you're new here, smash that subscribe button, hit the bell for notifications, and join our community of sleuths uncovering forgotten stories. We've got over 105 subscribers now, and it's all thanks to you. Today, we're tackling the tragic, unsolved murder of Lorraine "Lori" Zimmerman, a case that's equal parts heartbreaking and infuriating. This 15-year-old from Hagerstown, Maryland, deserved so much more than the nightmare she endured. We'll break it down chapter by chapter, with all the details from official sources, investigative twists, and why this cold case refuses to die. At around 3,000 words, this script is packed, perfect for your commute, workout, or late-night binge. Let's dive right in and honor Lori's memory by shining a light on her story.
Let's start at the beginning, because to understand the horror of what happened, you need to know the victim, not just as a statistic, but as a real person. Lorraine Zimmerman, affectionately known as Lori or Blondie, thanks to her striking blonde hair, was your quintessential 1980s teenager. Born and raised in Hagerstown, Maryland, a quaint town nestled in the Appalachian foothills where life moved at a slower, safer pace, Lori was 15 years old, white, female, and full of that youthful energy that makes parents both proud and worried. She attended South Hagerstown High School, where she navigated the typical teen dramas, classes, crushes, friendships, and dreams of what the future might hold. Maybe she wanted to be a teacher, a nurse, or just escape to the big city. We'll never know, because her story was stolen.
Hagerstown in the 80s was the kind of place where kids played outside until the streetlights came on, doors were left unlocked, and everyone knew their neighbors. It wasn't a hotbed of crime. Violent incidents were rare, making Lori's case all the more shocking. Her family was close-knit, a mom who doted on her, relatives nearby, and a community that rallied when things went wrong. Lori wasn't a troublemaker, no run-ins with the law, no risky behaviors that we know of. She was just normal. And that's what makes her disappearance so relatable and terrifying. It could have been anyone's daughter.
Now, let's set the scene for that fateful day, April 6, 1984. It was a Friday, the end of the school week, with the promise of weekend freedom in the air. Lori's mom, like countless parents, stood at the door and waved goodbye as her daughter boarded the yellow school bus bound for South Hagerstown, RI. Classes droned on, math, English, maybe gym, nothing out of the ordinary. When the final bell rang, Lori caught the bus home, chatting with friends perhaps, making plans for later. But here's where the accounts get a tad fuzzy, adding to the mystery right from the start.
One version from sources says she stopped at a friend's house for a quick 10-minute visit, maybe to borrow a notebook or gossip about the day.
Another account mentions she detoured to her aunt or grandmother's place to lend a hand with some moving. Picture it, boxes stacked, furniture shuffled, Lori pitching in with that helpful spirit of hers. After that brief stop, she set off toward home along Concord Street, a familiar route in a familiar neighborhood. The sun was still up, people were out and about, it should have been safe. But Lori never made it home.
As the hours ticked by, her mom's worry turned to full-blown panic. Dinner time came and went. No Lori. Bedtime approached. Still nothing. She started making calls to friends, to relatives, anyone who might have seen her blonde-haired girl. "Have you seen Lori? She's not home yet." The answers were all the same. No, sorry. Heart racing, her mother headed to the Hagerstown Police Department that very evening to file a missing person report. In those pre-Amber Alert days, responses weren't as swift, but the cops took it seriously. Searches began almost immediately, volunteers combing parks, woods, and streets, flyers plastered on telephone poles with Lori's smiling photo and description.
The last confirmed sighting by relatives placed her about 12 miles from where her body would eventually be found. That's a significant distance. Did she hitch a ride? Was she lured away? The family endured an unbearable week of uncertainty. Sleepless nights, endless prayers, the kind of agony that no parent should face. Media picked up the story locally, urging the public to come forward with tips. But as days passed without a sign, hope began to flicker. What happened to Lori on that walk home? Was it a stranger? Someone she knew? The questions mounted, setting the stage for a tragedy that would unfold in the most gruesome way.
8 endless days later, on April 14, 1984, the nightmare escalated from missing person to murder investigation. It was a Saturday, and 2 unsuspecting locals were out for a walk in a secluded wooded area off Reno Monument Road, roughly 3.6 miles south of Boonesboro in Washington County, Maryland. This wasn't a popular hiking spot. Think overgrown trails, thick underbrush, the perfect place to hide something sinister. As they strolled, something caught their eye. A nondescript cardboard box with an odd object perched on top. Curiosity drew them closer. They nudged the box aside and recoiled in horror.
There, partially clothed and discarded like refuse, was the body of 15-year-old Lori Zimmerman. The scene was straight out of a horror movie. Leaves matted with evidence, the air thick with the scent of decay. They bolted to call authorities, and soon the area swarmed with Maryland State Police. The case was officially logged under number P64-04364, marking the start of a formal homicide probe. Crime scene techs in white suits meticulously documented everything. Photos snapped from every angle, evidence bagged, the body carefully removed for autopsy.
The medical examiner's report was devastating. Official cause of death? Strangulation. A slow, intimate way to kill, requiring the perpetrator to look into Lori's eyes as life faded. But it didn't stop there. She had been brutally beaten, bruises covering her body, signs of a violent struggle. Perhaps she fought back, scratching, kicking, refusing to go quietly. And then the detail that sends shivers down spines, a foreign object deliberately lodged in her throat. Was it to silence her screams? A signature of the killer's rage. This wasn't public knowledge at the time, a holdback to verify confessions later. Forensics suggested sexual assault was likely, adding another layer of violation to the crime. Crucially, investigators believed Lori wasn't killed at the dump site. The lack of blood spatter, the positioning, it all pointed to her being murdered elsewhere and transported. That 12-mile gap from her last sighting? It screamed planning, a vehicle involved, perhaps a familiar face or an opportunistic predator with local knowledge.
In 1984, forensic science was evolving but limited. No DNA profiling like today. Think fingerprints, fiber analysis, basic toxicology. They collected what they could. Soil samples, hairs, anything that might link to a suspect. The community was stunned. Hagerstown's sense of security shattered. Vigils were held, tears shed, anger brewed. Parents warned their kids, don't walk alone, lock the doors. But beneath the grief, questions loomed. How did no one see anything? Was the killer watching from the shadows? This discovery wasn't closure. It was the opening of a wound that festers to this day. With the body found, the Maryland State Police swung into high gear. The Criminal Investigation Bureau's Homicide Division, headquartered in Pikesville, MD, took charge. These were seasoned detectives, no strangers to violence, but a teen girl's murder hits different. They canvassed neighborhoods, interviewed everyone in Lori's orbit, classmates who might have noticed odd behavior, teachers recalling her last day, family members grilled for any family secrets. Did Lori have a boyfriend? Any arguments? Strangers hanging around? Tips flooded in, the public eager to help. A suspicious car here, a weird guy there. But sifting wheat from chaff is detective work's grind. They reconstructed her timeline. Bus ride, stop at friends or relatives, walk on Concord Street. Was she abducted mid-stride, lured into a vehicle? The remote dump site suggested the killer knew the area well, perhaps a local hunter, farmer, or resident familiar with back roads.
Evidence was key, but tech limitations hampered progress. That foreign object? Analyzed for prints, but yields were slim. No eyewitnesses stepped up with a smoking gun. As weeks became months, the case cooled. Leads dried up, the file thickened with dead ends. Frustration mounted, for cops, for the family. Lori's mom, shattered, pleaded in press conferences, "Someone knows something, please come forward." By 1988, 4 years in, desperation led to an unconventional pivot. Lead investigator Sergeant Keith Wattenscheidt, a no-nonsense cop open to anything, reached out to a psychic. In an era before cold case squads and genetic genealogy, why not? It wasn't the first time law enforcement turned to the paranormal. Think the Boston Strangler case or others where hunches paid off. But would it work here? That's where our story takes a supernatural turn.
Enter Dorothy Allison, a New Jersey-based psychic with a track record that intrigued skeptics and believers alike. By the late 80s, she'd assisted on over 100 cases, claiming visions that led to breakthroughs. Wattenscheidt met her in Hagerstown, keeping it blind. No case details, not even Lori's name. "Just tell me what you see," he said. Allison, in her trance-like state, scribbled notes furiously, over 50 tips emerging, a torrent of names, places, vehicles, and scenarios. Some were eerily accurate, defying explanation. She described the strangulation vividly, mentioning the foreign object in Lori's throat, a detail never released publicly. How? Psychic ability or subconscious cues? She amazed Wattenscheidt and others, even appearing on Unsolved Mysteries in 1989, where the case got national exposure. Host Robert Stack's gravelly voice narrated the segment, boosting tips but also scrutiny. Let's break down her key clues. The killer's identity shift. Right away, Allison pointed to Chuck Bernstein, insisting he was the perpetrator. But visions evolved. Later, she clarified he might just hold info, not be the killer. Cops checked him out. Alibis held. No charges.
The bleeped suspect. She named another individual as the prime suspect, censored on TV for legal reasons. Detectives ran the name through databases. No hits. A ghost lead?
Suspect profile deep dive. Allison envisioned a janitor at Lori's school, suicidal, bespectacled, sometimes wigged, freshly beardless. Bizarrely, he might pose as a cop. She saw an old yellow car, perhaps used to pick Lori up. Was this a composite or red herring?
The crime sequence. In her mind's eye, Lori met two friends at a library, resisted advances, got struck on the head, raped, then murdered. Graphic, but did it match evidence?
Symbolic and geographic hits. Numbers 71 or 17. Bingo! Lori's grave plot is 17. Cleveland, a street adjacent to the crime scene. A church nearby, half a mile away exactly.
Evaluation time. Hits were startling, but misses undermined credibility. The janitor? Likely confused with Lori's stepfather's occupation. The wig and beard? Matched Wattenscheid himself. He'd shaved days prior and wore a toupee. Cold reading trick or genuine mix-up? Allison's tips were often vague, contradictory, incoherent per some cops. The Unsolved Mysteries buzz generated leads, but none panned out. By 2011, investigator Bachtel reflected, no need for psychic review again. It was a fascinating detour, highlighting desperation, but ultimately the case remained unsolved. Psychics? Tool? Or gimmick? You decide.
Cold cases don't die. They hibernate. Lori's lingered until 1999, when it was formally reopened amid advances in forensics. But the real push came in 2013 with a dedicated cold case team under Sergeant David Sexton. These pros, armed with fresh perspectives, revisited everything. Re-interviewed witnesses whose memories might have sharpened, scoured old tips for overlooked gems. DNA was the holy grail. Samples from the scene, semen, hairs, held promise. Imagine cracking it with today's tech, like in the Golden State Killer case. But heartbreak. The evidence vanished. Misplaced. Destroyed? A clerical error that gutted hopes? Without it, they turned to suspects. One standout, an inmate linked to Hagerstown in Boonesboro, serving time for kidnapping 2 girls. Similar MO? He was questioned intensely, but denied involvement. No proof, no charges.
Today, the case is active, handled by Maryland State Police Homicide at 410-653-4200. Investigators suspect locals know more. Perhaps a spouse overheard a confession. A friend noticed odd behavior post-1984. Lori's family, still grieving, appeals. Even small details matter. Anonymous tips via coldcaseworld.com ensure safety, with editors forwarding info to cops. Communities like Reddit's r/unsolved murders keep the story alive, dissecting theories. Was it a serial killer passing through? A school staffer? Public awareness is key. One shared post could trigger a memory. Comparisons to cases like JonBenet Ramsey show how persistence pays off. For Lori, justice might come via genetic genealogy or a deathbed confession. The fight continues.
Lori's murder is a stark reminder of investigative challenges, faded evidence, witness reluctance, tech gaps. Analogize it to a jigsaw puzzle. Initial pieces, timeline, autopsy assembled, but cornerstones, DNA, eyewitness, lost or absent. The image teases completeness, yet gaps persist, leaving the killer's face blurred. Broader lessons? It underscores child safety evolution, Amber Alerts, surveillance, but vulnerabilities remain. In a digital age, cases like this inspire apps, databases. For families, it's eternal pain. Closure elusive. Lori's story humanizes stats. She was Blondie, dreaming big, gone too soon. Theories abound. Stranger abduction? Acquaintance? Psychic clues hinted familiarity. What if the yellow car owner reads this, or the janitor type steps forward?
If this resonates, act, share, tip in.
Visit cold case sites. Support victims' funds. Lori deserves resolution. Thanks for joining. If hooked, like, comment theories. Library meetup real? Subscribe for more unsolved sagas. Check our playlist. Stay vigilant. Justice awaits. Peace out.